I've lived 1,000 lives. I've piloted 1,000 souls. I've killed and fought and died just for another role.
This is the Happy Jacks RPG podcast, a roundtable discussion that's a mix of friendship, humor, unbridled enthusiasm, and tabletop RPG topics sent in from around the world.
Just for another role.
Hello, and welcome to Season 34, Episode 9 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. My name is Kimmy.
I'm Pooja.
I'm Clara.
And I'm Artem.
And in today's episode, Eric from New Jersey has a rules question specifically for Pooja. Frey from California asks if we've heard of lit RPGs, which is all one word, and it's confusing, we don't know. And spoilers. And from the archive 2015, Josh asks how to run D&D for a single player. If you'd like to contribute a question or story to the show, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com, or you can post in the mailbag channel on the Discord, which is happyjacks.org/discord. Announcements. Our next game days will be taking place September 28th. You can join the Discord and play for free at happyjacks.org/discord. And you can run games, you can play games. We usually have a really eclectic mix of options, and it's a whole lot of fun, and it's a very safe, chill, wholesome community, like really honestly amazing, great community. So again, September 28th, and it always kind of bleeds into the days before and the days after that because we have a lot of people in different time zones. So if you're not available specifically on Saturday the 28th, don't worry, your Saturday the 28th might be someone else's Friday the 27th, and maybe they're running a game at that time, so you never know. So go check it out. Strategicon is next weekend. Our show will be live Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific time. A bunch of us are also running games and floating about, drinking and hanging out. Artem, you're running a game.
Yes, I am.
It's so exciting. What's your game?
Mouse Ritter. A little mousy adventure.
Yay!
Yeah. In
No.
a little setting of my own called What About Bob's?
Fucking happy.
So good.
So excited.
Yes, it's very, very
Excited.
It's very good. And I'm running a game called Starscape.
Oh.
So it's very
What?
Starscape, Kimmy.
I know. Well, I'm actually really excited. It's the first time I'm going to be running Starscape with an actual planned adventure that I've written.
Ooh,
It's
what's
like-
that like?
Yeah, I have no idea. Like, I've only run it for my friends. It's like a test before I release the adventure. So it's gonna be interesting. I've never run an adventure pre-written for strangers. I've always improv'd everything off the top of my head with like maybe a vague idea of plot. So it's going to be amazing, I think, because I'm not going to be panicking the entire time for names. It'll be great. Or it'll be
That's the
terrible.
no matter-
That's the biggest thing.
No matter how many lists of names I print out, panic every time.
Every time. See, I fixed that in Starscape because the GM has a set list and every single playbook has its own separate list of random sci-fi names.
Oh,
Because I am terrible at names and it's traumatized me and I'm going to make sure everyone's prepared.
at some point I have to gush
That's
about.
strong teacher energy.
Yeah. So much.
At some point I have to gush about Starscape to you now that I've finished running
Okay.
because I have
exciting.
good thoughts. Many
Okay.
good thoughts.
I'm glad. All right. Also, Lloyd, he's my new BFF from Gen Con, or one of many new BFFs from Gen Con. But it was great after all these years to meet Lloyd in person and hang out. Even if it was like 1 a.m., it was very tiring, but awesome. We'll be running Die, a campaign. It's a game. It's a fantastic thing based on some comic books by Rowan Rook and Deckard. So that AP is going to be spinning up and running soon, so I'm very, very excited about that. Vixie is going to be able to be in that too, since it's an online campaign, since, Lloyd is from England, so that's a little bit too far of a commute for the live studio every week.
Feels like a lack of commitment.
Sounds like sugar talk.
Yeah. So anyway, very exciting. And yeah, our indie designer of the month for August is Jacqueline Brick. You can find them at rufflejacks.itch.io or search for Jacqueline Brick on DriveThru. This week we are discussing Garrote Couture, which is very exciting. It's based off Graham Walmsley's innovative Cthulhu Dark game. Garrote Couture brings us fabulous models and gorgeous clothing, all trying to get to Fashion Week events without ruining their ensembles. Every cabbie, every bike messenger, and even other models are a potential threat. But can you get there with grace and styled and n'est-ce pas? Thank you, everyone.
This game was made for us.
I'm
Incredible.
mad about it, actually. I just bought like so many games.
I know.
I mean, this one's only $4 on itch.io.
It is.
It's only $4.
Yeah. So uses 3d6 per player plus some note cards and pencils. And as Pooja said, it is $4 on itch.io. And again, that's rufflejacks.itch.io. Yeah, very exciting. All right. I'm happy to see you all. I haven't seen anybody in days. All right. Mailbag number 1. Who would like to read this one?
It's actually,
I mean,
it's directed at Pooja.
I know, but is it weird for Pooja to read it if it's to her?
Actually, I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I'll just
Okay, just read it. Okay. Okay.
Dear Kimmy, and actually, this is directed at one host in particular, and others can chime in if they wanted to.
Okay.
Thank you for that permission, I guess. Dear Pooja, and Kimmy, and the rest.
That's a
Oh,
weird
wow.
feeling.
The rest.
Gosh.
And the rest.
Hi, it's Eric from New Jersey. I am writing to you because as I have gotten older, my ability to grok systems has diminished over time, even though I like exposing my players to new things. I recently purchased Spire and Trophy Gold, and honestly, I don't get either of them, which made me very sad. I even tried watching an AP of Trophy Gold. Not even the soothing tones of Mike F could make me like an AP. I just can't get into them most of the time, with certain exceptions. Those exceptions, I'm just gonna assume they're us.
Yeah.
I certainly don't seem to be able to use the APs to learn the rules.
Yeah, if you don't like soothing tones, we're definitely your flavor. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing soothing about our playstyle. Zero soothing.
Ooh.
All right.
Why am I asking you? Well, you were in a Traveler game run by the ultimate of not knowing the rules when he runs, aka Uncle Stu, unless it's GURPS.
Yeah.
Pooja, you had that system down. Like, out of anyone at the table, you knew the rules better than anyone. I was impressed.
We just started asking you things. Like, we wouldn't even ask you. We're like, so how does this work, Pooja?
I have a funny story about Pooja learning rules, so let's continue.
Continue.
How do you learn how to grok a system? What techniques do you use? Also, do you have any APs where you're the GM and had to learn a new system? Because I want to see how you go about it. I'll try another AP, hoping I will find another hashtag
Just Us
Heroes out there somewhere. I tried asking this once in a chat, and instead of being an eager disciple, it sounded gatekeepy, like, well, have you ever GM'd? And that was not my intent. So my apologies for that. Okay, I'm rambling, and other hosts can chime in also. It's just frustrating sometimes.
When we chime in, yeah, I know.
As
Constantly frustrated by that. Just kidding. I'm kidding. I love you all.
I got the note.
As always, stay gaming, stay tipsy, and stay diverse.
Aw.
Mugs held high.
Huzzah.
Eric from New Jersey.
Very nice.
Yay. Thank you, Eric.
Can I tell my stupid, very short story?
Oh God, yes, please.
When we were working on Mekong, we were all really struggling with some of the rules and remembering what we could and couldn't do. And and about halfway through the show, Pooja came in and was like, I made us cheat sheets. And like PDF in chat, like, go now, this is what you need. And like she, Pooja like reverse, like learned all of the rules that all of us had, like even the GM had, so that we could just stop and actually get what we were doing finally. And would like coach us between things.
Yeah.
It was insane.
I struggle with this same problem. I have to play through games to really get them. Especially, like, I'm a little better at it now that I've tried writing RPG books, but RPG books are just so not intuitive for me to learn a system. And I feel like that's the case with lots of them, because a lot of them are written either like instruction manuals or like stories.
No.
And neither one is conducive to me learning like mechanics. So I don't know. You're magical.
I wouldn't go
True,
that way.
actually.
I had a PDF of the Traveler Rulebook, and it was my first AP on Happy Jacks.
It was.
Oh.
And I was so nervous that I was gonna go in and make a total ass of myself that I read the whole thing.
It's so kind.
Like, I remember being like in an Uber going somewhere the night before, reading the Traveler Rulebook on my phone.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Pooja.
Nice.
And like overall, one of the things about Travelers specifically was it only made sense if you were following the kind of like flow system of the rulebook itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those things where like with that, with Vampire, I bookmarked all the stuff that I needed to look at on a regular basis. I did the same thing on Mage, but Mage was harder because the 20th edition is like finding where you're supposed to be to like actually figure out where what the rules are. It's the hardest part, and that book is 700 pages long.
Yeah.
But that's my big secret is I go through the book and then I always have PDF copies and I bookmark the relevant things that I think will be useful, except in the case of Mekong, where I made us all a full ass cheat sheet and copied and
very
pasted
nice.
from the rulebook.
We didn't need it.
We all needed it. It wasn't
we did
just
need it.
it wasn't like everybody else was getting it wrong and I was getting it right. Like we were all, and that's an interesting one, I think, because you can really see where we
you can see-
finally all
yes.
got it.
You
You
can see
can
where we got
I
it.
can feel like you can see in the AP where that happened, and also it's a fun AP with a lot of sound effects and music and both myself and Clara once again falling in love. It's fine.
Yeah.
We're never gonna unpack it.
If you want to see an AP where I was learning a new system, I did City of Mist for 12-sided stories, and that was my first time running that. Basically, I have never run the same system twice. Yet. So it's all me like being like, okay, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
I think that one went better than Band of Blades, which is what I was running for Jason's channel when we did our XCOM game. Mostly because Jason and I talked a lot ahead of time of Band of Blades and threw out like half the book. I was like, I like certain aspects of that system. And based on what we had been looking at, I liked it the best out of the ones we had looked at. But also I was like, okay, no, how about blurb.
So what
In
you're
retrospect,
saying-
I should have just used like Forged in the Dark, like itself.
Yeah. So what you're saying is Jason didn't run something exactly to rules as written.
No, that was me running it.
I know, but I'm just saying on his channel, like
Oh.
you were sucked in by his brand and just like corrupted to just
That's right.
I mean,
vibe rules.
Right.
you say corrupted, but he was trying to get me to run the drop.
Yeah. Okay.
Did he
That's true. Yeah. Okay.
finish that?
No.
So yeah, like for me, it's really about like those first few sessions are going to be rough.
Yeah.
Just know going in, the first few sessions are going to be rough. The best things I could say as a GM going into like figuring out rules, if you're like trying to run for other people, is most TTRPG books have sections where they have like little dialogue sections where it's like, oh, and here's an example of how this is used.
Yeah. Play
It's
examples.
play examples, and those I find much more useful than actually looking at the rules themselves first.
Yeah,
and then I'm like,
for
wait, but
sure.
how does this work? And then I go back, and so there's like more of a reference thing. Honestly, most APs that I listen to outside of Happy Jacks are not good for learning rules.
I was gonna say most APs I cut out the rules nonsense because it's not good media. If you edit, we cut it out. I'll say that. If you don't edit, I think a lot of that's why so many people just play D&D is because once you learn a rule set, why do you need to learn a second one? The crossed finger was because I just had the delightful experience of a group of us trying to play Polaris for the first time without any of us having played it before. And the little dialogue trees, not trees, but like the little dialogue samples of gameplay helped a bit, but the book was written in such a tone that was like, sorry, this game designer doesn't make it onto the list because Polaris is really fucking rad. But would. In that the book is written with this like Arthurian legend vibe but that's including the rules.
Oh no.
And then the gameplay samples they do break that tone in half. And it's just like dudes at a table being like, so I think that I kill him now.
Oh, that's hard.
It's like, yes. And the game shall start with the sacred ritual phrase of, and then, like, I guess I kill him or something. Like, that's kind of it's weird. It's a very cool game, and it's very weird.
Yeah, having a narrative tone specifically for your full RPG book is definitely in vogue at the moment. And having, like, a voice, like an author's voice in it.
Polaris is from 2005.
Oh, wow.
And the other game that I'm trying to dig through with the rules right now, Castle Falkenstein,
that sounds like
has the kind of art that first edition 7th Sea has. Another book that is written a lot and says very little.
Amazing. Okay. You can see this, I think, most clearly. The game I'm actually the most comfortable running besides Starscape, which I wrote, is Wild Talents, actually, because I ran it the most. I've run that so many times at so many conventions and stuff like that. When it comes to making like new powers, I would have to read through. But that's a game that if I had character sheets, I could like run it probably mostly from memory. Like as long as the powers were on the thing, like I couldn't make characters from memory. But good.
Like it would. I don't.
No one could. No, there's a lot of math involved in the making of the
There's
characters.
spreadsheets.
Yeah, lots of spreadsheets.
I say that I can run Monster of the Week from memory.
Yeah, but yeah, it for me, like for the One Ring campaign I ran, I was so nervous about that campaign. I was so nervous, and I know a whole bunch of Tolkien lore, and I also am very aware of how toxic so much of the Tolkien fan base is, and I was just like, cool, as a femme person, like running this on stream, I'm sure this will go well. It'll be great, especially because I knew I was going to take liberties and really kind of create my own story. And it turned out that the One Ring fan base, specifically for that RPG, the second edition, is so great. They're amazing. I like joined their Discord, like, hello, hi. And then they were just fantastic. They threw all these resources at me and stuff like that. But before I started, like, I watched a bunch of APs, and that didn't help at all. At all. And so it was literally one of those things you can watch, and it was sort of this, like what we were describing with Mekong, where it's like, I think we do this. What do you, okay, oh yeah, this is how it goes. Oh yeah, okay, we're doing this. Hey, all right, like, and it's just like by like a certain session, you can just like feel us all just like settle into knowing exactly how the combats go, the journey things, all that stuff. So it's really interesting, and I just think that's the process for anyone. Like, I feel like sometimes like people feel like we should, just because if someone's run a game a bunch of times, like D&D, like we were saying, like people are really familiar with that. So you jump in session 1, you're very, good and smooth and like, I know exactly, this is how you fix that, or blah, blah, blah. That's how all D&D players sound in my head. That's how you fix that, blah, blah, blah.
But as nervous as you were with that AP, it's beautiful. It's really lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be that trepidation when you're either playing a new system or running a new system, or both of those things at the same time with a whole new group of people. So,
And I would say, like, I mean, yes, it was hilarious in the Traveler situation, but that was mostly because, like, I was approaching it like I was cramming for my SATs.
Mm-hmm.
and, like, and I needed to impress people.
Yeah.
Um,
I do the same thing with the bookmarking though. Like, because
Super
everyone,
helpful.
yeah, and everyone's going to remember different things. Like, there's certain things about a system that I will grab onto and I'll remember that and I will never have to look at that page again. And then there's things that are very obvious that I use in every session that my brain will just never capture. And I will ask, and it's like, this is the page that needs the little colored tab I put on. Like, I used to have a color code, and this is one of the reasons I know Wild Talent so well, is because I color coded the book the first time I started running it at conventions, so I could look things up. Like, combat was pink, and da-da-da. Like, I had the little teacher tabs, Better Living Through Officer Lives. And, like, I knew exactly how to find what I needed in that exact second in my book because it was all color tabbed, just like you did with your PDFs. So after you look up at something enough times, you, like,
And the
start
other
getting it.
thing that I would say, like, when you're doing a new system is break it down. Like, if you're GMing a new system, especially if it's like a home game and you know the people and all of that stuff, like, it's totally okay to just, like, okay, today we're doing character creation. Today I'm going to, like, mainline all the aspects of character creation and figure that out. And I'm not going to worry about the rest of it right now. I'm just going to do this. And then, cool, once you're past that hurdle, and then you give people the liberty to be like, oh, okay, this is new to all of us. If it turns out it kind of sucks, if there are parts of it that don't work, you like fudge them later. Who cares? You're all there to have fun.
Yeah.
And so then as you go through, so like for each session, you can figure out like what are the elements that I desperately need to know for this session. And that I feel like is also super helpful because you're not trying to understand the entirety of the system in one go. You break it up into little, like, bite-sized, like hors d'oeuvre-sized pieces.
I really echo with that. Yeah, I've been living in a world of bookmarks recently. I'm working on an AP with the Emporium of the Wayward Gamer,
Oh.
and we're working on a Hunter the Reckoning.
Oh,
AP.
God.
Wow.
Let me tell you, man. I mean, it's fun, but that book is organized in a really wild way. Like, while during character creation, you'll be on page 50, you'll be jumping to page 120 and back and forth, and it's really overwhelming. And you're like, well, like, speaking of grokking, I was like, how am I, like, just gonna get it to? And for me, my mind goes to, as like, I'm not jamming it, I'm in it, but for me, from like a jam's perspective, I go like, how quickly can I get to the point where I have dice in my hand and I just throw them and see what happens? Like, for me, when I think of grokking, is like, how quickly can I get my players to ask me, so I can ask my players, what do you want to do, right? Like, and so like, I'm like, how do we streamline to get to that point? And thankfully, a lot of, I feel like, more recent books at least have these, like, not like quick start guides, but just like they'll condense it to a page, like Blessings, like the Hunter the Reckoning has that, and actually breaks down, and you're like, oh, once you look at that, you're like, oh, okay, cool. It's a fun little dice pool system with some, you know, sometimes you experience despair, and that's really kind of cool and funky. But if you're reading it just outright, it's extremely overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it's like, I do feel like that there's something about, you don't have to put so much pressure on yourself. Like, how do I grok this well? Like, sometimes you are looking at something that is written in a way too complicated tone.
Yeah.
But I think your point, or somebody was saying, the little bits of dialogue of, like, you know, Marcus, the underground, this, you know, uses his drone jockey ability. You're like, oh, okay, now I understand what's going on here. You know, it's yeah, I've been thinking about grokking a lot recently in other systems, but yes, if you can have a breakdown of how the dice roll, that is almost like a great place to start from sometimes.
They're also super awkward to write. Like, you're sitting there trying to make up what a random player would be like, and you're like,
one of the playtests.
yeah.
The thing that got that sort of sparked in the attempt to learn Polaris as all fresh eyes on it, we ended up in this conversation that this has almost no point other than, isn't this interesting? Which is that, like, in the same way that children's culture exists, like, you know, who taught you how to play tag? Who taught you to, like, the words to Miss Mary Mac?
Yeah.
Which gets passed down from kid to kid more often than anything else.
Yep.
RPGs are one of these weird oral tradition situations where, like, the best way I know anyone has learned an RPG has been, well, you want to come over and play Starscape with me? Like, true. It's fascinating that there's a whole piece of our culture, again, that adults do. That is really, you just kind of got to bring someone else in on our little cult situation.
Yeah.
It's actually 100% the same on the making and publishing RPG side. Like, people 100% have no idea how to do it. There's no place to learn how to do it. You just have to, like, meet other people making games and hope they tell you their secrets, or you're going to just reinvent the wheel.
Do you know,
It's the weirdest
That's
thing.
how my
Sorry.
that's how my industry works too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Legit.
Claire and I both work at film and TV production. Like you're just go do it, have fun.
yeah, you just learn on the job.
Yeah.
I was doing a home game of Mothership recently, and a friend of mine got really excited about it. He's like, "Oh, you should try this module and this module." And so he sends me all of these different modules. And I'm like, "Oh, so sweet." And my eyes just was just like, "Oh God, I'm gonna like absolutely fuck up all of these. Like, I'm not gonna be able to do." And I realized, oh, I think I need to kind of do this my way to understand how this game works and like how to build. Because, for example, to use like Mothership, a specific example, that game plays on building suspense, introducing terror, introducing complications that are the stakes are really high. So if I'm reading something that's already been pre-published and it's assuming that I understand how that flows, I was like, oh, I think I might miss certain specific beats, and like, you know, oh, I think should have started getting scarier a little bit earlier. Oh no, you know. So I literally had like used they had like an interesting like GM's guide where like I literally just created an adventure step by step.
Yeah.
Just to feel out, oh, okay, I understand. Okay, now I introduce this. Great. Okay, now the threat's been introduced. Now I have to show how it's going to manifest. And so it was interesting that the sort of the grokking was I needed to do it, pull it apart myself, and just go bit by bit. I will say though, what was really helpful with that game is that I think the first hour I was introducing things into the game that just were not useful. And it was a matter of like, and then I had sort of kind of got some feedback afterwards, and I was like, oh, it was like nice to do things just that didn't work. So like, don't be afraid to fail. Because actually, that's going to be a lovely way for you to like figure out what works for your table and what doesn't, you know? But again, as soon as you're in front of the people and you're trying things out, you're going to start noticing, okay, we don't need to worry about this. We don't need to worry about that. I know, you know, the game designers maybe hate to hear this, but I do feel like most games are like, this is a blueprint, and I'm going to keep some of this, but a lot of this is going to be ignored, you know?
Yeah. The other great thing about...
I feel like that's the opposite of what you want to happen with blueprints.
Honestly, I don't really know how... I don't really know how blueprints work. I just say that.
And every IKEA project has 3 extra screws, right? That's normal.
You didn't need that extra bathroom.
Yeah, architecture, you shouldn't ignore the blueprints. You're right.
Support beam does not need to be here.
Oh, such an eyesore.
Open
One of the best things about running a game, though, is that you also have generally between 2 and 4, maybe 5 or 6 other brains there.
Yes.
Who are there to help you remember or know things. So if you don't know some things, have someone look it up.
Yeah.
Or maybe they'll know, or ask the table. Like, again, like the GM does not have to be like the vault of all knowledge and have all the answers. Like, you know, like delegate, open source some of that stuff to the table. Like, come on, you're all working together. You're working together to play a game. You're all creating the story. You can all help learn the rules.
And, you know, in this, on the teacher thing, like if you get the players at the table engaged with looking stuff up and learning how stuff works actively, it's going to stick on with them better too.
Yeah, and that's a sign that they're already kind of bought in too.
Yeah.
Is that they're kind of excited to be there. I will add one other thing, is that I feel like what helps in this grokking thinking is like having a thesis statement. Like, I've gotten super into Mouse Raider recently, but the thesis statement was, I wanted to create an experience akin to like Lord of the Rings, of people traveling for a long distance of time and to like simulate that, like going through wilderness and like maybe getting lost, discovering new locations, ancient ruins, etc., etc., etc. But I also wanted it to be that you have a group of heroes and they have a party of NPCs that they're taking care of. So I wanted to simulate this, like, not just like 4 people wandering into the woods, but a whole community kind of moving, you know? And that was like my thesis statement. I was like, okay, how do I make that happen? And I started looking at like 4 or 5 different OSR, old school revival kind of games, and just picking bits and pieces to make that happen. But it's just gonna helpful to sort of like have a mission statement. Like, how do I do this? How do I make a long hike?
Yeah.
It seemed really fun.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how do you make a long hike seem really
Yeah,
fun?
in
Because
real
it really
life also.
doesn't- I mean, don't do it in summer.
Don't like hiking.
God. Everybody in LA likes hiking.
It's the easiest thing to make.
It's terrible. And it's not even a good hike. It's a dusty road that people drive on for services. And then that's like hiking.
I mean, there are
such a
actual
weird
hikes
record.
that
Wow,
are
my
very
goodness.
nice in the fall and winter times.
That's
Just so you know.
Okay.
Like, but Griffith Park is not hiking.
Right. Runyon
Griffith
Canyon
Park
is
is-
not hiking.
We
Like, well-
live near Runyon Canyon.
Fryman can be, but I'm
okay.
just saying, like, Griffith Park is not hiking. It's
No.
walking on a literally, like, 8-foot dirt path
Yeah, that's exactly
with 100 other people. That's not the same thing.
It's not.
But,
no.
like, there are nice things that you can go do, and, like,
yeah.
that I would consider, like, brisk walks.
Yeah.
And because I also hate hiking.
Yeah.
Well,
So I don't want to think of them as hikes. They're, like, just lovely, like, forays into nature.
You're defending
Look.
going to Runyon Canyon anyway.
This is such an LA conversation.
Seriously. Look, shout out to my perpetually impressive wife who has been going on urban hikes to explore LA. She literally walked to Pasadena from West Hollywood yesterday.
What the
What the fuck?
Yeah,
What?
that's right. She clocked in with her like little detours 24 miles.
Oh my god.
So she
In a
likes
day?
to walk. Some people do like
She
hiking.
is like,
Are you practicing for like the Olympics being here in a
I
few
mean,
years?
oh,
Honestly.
oh my god,
I didn't realize
there's
you
a whole
could
thing.
walk
There's a whole
from
thing
West
about hiking
Hollywood
with her.
to-
I didn't either. I thought there were like some giant freeways in the way that you couldn't get over.
You're not
Uh,
technically supposed to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, she's found like a route where it takes you over like highway overpasses, so you don't have to be on quiet exposed roads. So it's so wild. It's really impressive. She
That
is
is-
yeah.
kind of training to be able to walk 50 miles in a day.
That's
Amazing.
fucking rad.
I know. She's
y'all are
wild.
gonna make it.
Yeah, I bet it's
Well, she's gonna do it. I'm just
You're
very
like-
yeah. Good job. sweetie.
depending on the time of day. It may actually be faster than driving.
You're not incorrect.
Yeah.
Just figure out like the bike path, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those like a little electric bikes.
So what if your thesis statement is how do we make that fun in a game? A very focused idea. Yeah.
Now, One Ring does a pretty good job of the journeys. I'm going to say, but I don't think they can make a journey. I want to see now a journey table for LA walking.
And so I actually have a I can get this back to the topic.
Why? It's just so interesting.
This is us.
The irony of Clarabin would be like, let's go back to the topic.
I felt that burn,
Ow,
and I'm like
fuck.
sitting on the other side.
Jesus. All right. Pooja.
You got this. You got this.
You called out my PDFs.
I love Control F. But PDFs are great. I'm not calling you out at all. No, what I was going to say is I have a little set of 3, and I got them at our friendly local neighborhood game store, Geeky Tees. And I've seen them there recently, which is why I said it. It's a pack of 3 little journal-sized games, like, tiny pocket journals. And therefore going on a walk and playing the game as you go on the walk.
Aw.
Have I used any of them? No. But it's the hot as balls here. I'll wait till it gets cooler. I'll do a little autumn walk and do
Like
my
it was
little
like
journal.
October. October
Yeah.
is the earliest.
Yeah. But it is like a little like walking RPG. It's very cute. They're very, very
That's so
sweet.
cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're obviously solo journaling games, so they're all kind of melancholy, I think. But that's every
That's
solo
on brand.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
on brand for every solo journaling game.
What are you gonna do? I mean, like,
Yeah.
You don't journal when you're happy.
yeah. Who's like, I really love this. Let me write things down in my
Happy
journal
people-
by myself.
Happy people scrapbook.
Happy people post on Instagram.
That's not true.
No.
Anyway, mailbag 2.
All right, go ahead, Clara.
Oh, God damn it.
This one's really long, so we can flip on.
Hi, y'all. Hiya, y'all. Long
job.
time no write. Here's something that has been at peak interest for me for some time now. Let's talk about lit RPG or isekai stories. Isekai is a genre of anime and manga stories that have, and in the last few years, has inspired another similar genre in lit RPG. You can get a ton of lit RPG stories on Kindle now. I did if you are watching this and you saw me looking down a lot, I was on my phone on Kindle downloading some because I'm doing the puja and I'm cramming. I'm like pre-studying. I've been reading them for the last 7 years. These stories have some kind of game elements built into them, including level cultivation, spells, abilities, perks, and titles. Some stories have a heavy game element, and others it is pretty light. One of the most popular is The Wandering Inn, which has been mentioned a few times on the show. The Wandering Inn has a light game element. This is a portal type story. This is when the main character gets transported to another world. Sometimes it happens after they die in our world, then wake up somewhere else. Does someone want popcorn from here?
Sure.
I'll just keep going and go.
A few other types are reincarnation/time loop, apocalypse, harem, slice of life, fantasy, and sci-fi. The reincarnation/time loop stories are sometimes combined with apocalypse story plots, the main character being sent back in time after dying, failing at some final battle to get another chance at changing the outcome. My favorite one is A Summoner Awakens. The magic system is card-based. Slight tangent incoming, 2 other card-based stories are All the Skills and Goblin Summoner. All 3 of these series use the cards in different ways and are great reads. Apocalypse plots are usually the system coming to our world and causing most of the population to get killed by the sudden rise of magic and monsters and sometimes dungeons. My favorite one is Defiance of the Fall series. Harem is usually the main character, a guy, having a bunch of women around fawning over him. I don't like these types of stories and I don't read them. Many book descriptions will tell that the book has harem elements or doesn't have harem elements in it.
We can use why choose instead of the term harem.
Is that what it is now?
Why choose?
I thought why choose specifically for polyamory situations.
Well, it's not always. A lot of times, like, it is like, oh, instead of your love triangle, or more appropriately, love V, or whatever the thing would be if you have 18 branches, it is the same. It covers the same ground as the harem term without being super offensive to our MENA friends and colleagues.
That's so valid.
Why choose?
Yeah.
Why choose?
Why choose? So your main character, why would they have to choose between all these different people?
Oh, I see.
I also can't tell if these are, not that we should then still use it, but like these might be actual like categories of that are used in this
they
genre.
are. I would say that the
tropes.
term is very commonly used. However, that doesn't actually make the term less offensive.
No, yeah.
And so I am trying to do my small part to encourage people to use why choose instead of harem. But in the case of like isekai stories, it doesn't actually help with all the like other weird parts of them because they're usually also very full of like objectification and misogyny.
Yes, absolutely. I recently restarted watching My Hero Academia. Just from I was like, and it's like I go back and you're like, oh man, even those first few, wow, it's like it's just such even something I think of as wholesome. Like I go back and I'm watching it, I'm like,
It's a little intense. Yeah. Thank you, Pooja.
yeah.
Sorry, I just interrupt because like,
no,
I've
it
got
makes
some friends who,
No, I
who
appreciate
have
it, for
made
sure.
that point with me a few times in the past. And
Yeah.
I'm like, let me pay it forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Sorry, I am still trying to. I am looking through one of these right now, trying to figure out the vibe.
Okay, so moving on. Slice of life plots usually do not focus on combat. One is about a farmer who uses his class abilities to defend his farm. My favorite is, oh great, I was reincarnated as a farmer. It's told in a "this happened to me" style narration of the main character. For fantasy, my faves are He Who Fights with Monsters, The 10 Realms, and The Good Guys and the Bad Guys series. All 3 are currently still being written. He Who Fights with Monsters is on book 10, Good Guys on book 12, and The Bad Guys on book 11.
I love that, like, I struggle with thinking of a perfect name for my game, and, like, some of these are so popular. It's like...
Good Guys.
Yeah, Guy Who Fights with Monsters.
My favorite part about this is that I definitely, when we read it the first time, thought it was the good guys and the bad guys, and that was one series.
Same,
yeah.
But
And
it's
it
actually-
turns out the good guys is one series
yeah,
and the bad guys is another
Totally
series.
not.
That's
Yeah.
really fun. Yeah, yeah.
I thought the same thing. When I was
I wonder if you like read the good guys book 1 and then you have to read the bad guys book 1.
Oh, if there's like interplay, if you read
Yeah.
Imagine that. Just He Who Fights with Monsters is on Kindle Unlimited.
Comic book runs do that really well sometimes.
Yeah.
They're like,
Oh, I
issue
love
1
it,
followed by
yeah.
issue 1 of this.
Sometimes.
Or
And sometimes
terribly.
it's just awful. I'm like, where am I going now? Just fucking
You're like,
tell
oh
me.
my
Yeah,
god.
it's a
Yeah.
huge money
So
grab.
many plot hooks. Okay.
Honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions. Do you want to jump in?
Oh, okay. I guess I will. There's one more though. We have another email after this, and I'll read that one.
It's
I can go.
Okay,
I
yeah,
can
I
go-
can
we've
finish.
got
Okay.
so many.
I believe in you.
Yes, okay. Honorable mentions. Life Reset series. Damn, so good. Made me cry, happy tears, and sad tears. Not sure how many times.
Oh,
Leveling Up the World. The game mechanics in this series are unique to me so far. The main character, Dalian, enters a broken object and repairs fixes it. World. A dull knife becomes sharp. A broken lantern shines again. It's like mini dungeon runs. You get XP, skills, stats, and abilities as rewards. Also, Dalian's relationship with Ori, a Gorgon, is super awesome. Their ship is a fire, using slang from the youngins.
I could probably actually get into this. Yeah. Go fix this.
Yeah.
I like
While you can get many of these stories on Kindle Unlimited, many are also available on a site called Royal Road. Some authors end up moving from Royal Road to Kindle, and sometimes the Royal Road site is cleared up of chapters that are now converted to Kindle books due to exclusive Amazon Kindle agreements. Some are on both platforms. When
Yes,
I read
if you
them,
ever wonder why a book is on Kindle Unlimited, it is nowhere else. It is because if you put it anywhere else, they ban you from Kindle Unlimited. Like Amazon has an exclusivity clause
oof,
in that.
damn y'all. When I read them, I'm looking for ideas to steal use for the game I run or characters I play. It's also fun to write up the characters in your favorite RPG of the moment. I also try to figure out how to use the game mechanics and the stories in RPGs. Many are based on D&D, but just as many are custom for the story. I'm working on a couple of lit RPG games using wild talents. One a Portal Fantasy theme, and the other an Apocalypse system theme. Have you read any lit RPG books/series? What RPGs that you know have the meta within the game? Anyways, I'm always open to talk about lit RPGs if anyone wants to. Keep doing what you're doing. You are rocking it hard. No PS. Cheers, Frey, and Matt.
Cheers.
All right.
I have not read, but I'm going to
Okay.
now.
I've
not
done
read.
some investigative journalism.
Real
Amazing.
time.
Real-time investigative
Our
journalism.
correspondent on the scene.
Yeah. So I went and downloaded He Who Fights with Monsters, and from what I can tell, it is as if you were. It is. Oh, wow. It seems like a literature, like a literized version of someone's solo D&D game, and then when things happen, it gives like I'm showing the studio. It gives like stats
Yeah.
based on like the character stuff
Huh.
that happens. So it would be a little as if you were describing your like solo tabletop game, and then instead of glossing over the part where everyone levels up, you just have the character sheet. Like that was my impression of it.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
It's
Cool.
yeah.
Okay, so I've interacted with this kind of story on a game side in two different ways. One, there are RPG like video games that are like this, that are story-based games, but you have stats, you have relationships, like you get different. Technically, you could kind of say that the personas are in this vein that come from kind of the same like root as isekai stories, and like in that you are playing through a story and you have your own stats based on the decisions that you made, and you can make you could make decisions that affect the overall story, but in general you are going to progress through the entire story in mostly
A
a
linear.
linear fashion.
Got it.
And then the other way, so like there are RPGs that are based that way, like story-based RPGs, and then there's also Nerdstrong used to do this where we would like fight boss monsters, or we
Yeah.
would have a campaign going where like you could go through and you would have your different stats and you would choose your class and it was based on the workouts that you did and things like that.
This is the gym that Pooja and I went to ages ago.
That's how we met.
I want that as an
I was your
app.
coach.
It was so good.
I would do that as an app. It's like
And
free for the.
Andrew has like a home program now for it, which is the same kind of thing, but also there's other places, like it's become pretty popular. There are other things you can do now, and there was I'm just terrible with names, so I'm sorry about that. But there's like a service where like they do free daily workouts and they do a ton of like at home like 30-day programs where
Yeah.
it's their workouts made to do every single day, so they're not super long, but like for those of us who can't take a day off or they'll just never do the thing again, it's good for that.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that they do is they have like stories that you play through.
Yeah.
And your stats level up. You can choose to do a certain workout to up a specific stat. It will give you more options later. Like they're like specific exercises. If you do this, if you like, you will get +1 to strength. If you do this, you'll get +1 to dex. Like those kinds of things, I think have gotten really popular in the space. I would like to think in part because Nerdstrong like got
We
really
made it
popular
popular.
across the world.
In the
like,
case, in the case of the lit RPGs, it doesn't look like there's any interactive element. It really just shows you the stat of the guy. It's like reading a video game.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it just shows you the guy. It's like reading a Final Fantasy game specifically.
Huh.
Because the story is completely linear, which I won't say Final Fantasy games are super linear, but
I mean, they are.
Yeah, they are.
Like,
yeah, okay, so okay, I can say it. Like so you can you sort of like any RPG like it's JRPG, you kind of play through the story through a movie. But it just shows you the stat updates as the characters get them and interact with them. So it is as if someone played the video game for you, I guess.
That's interesting.
That's
I wonder if they're different or if that's just that one that you downloaded.
That it could be. It could just be this specific one, but I actually looked at a couple.
Oh, okay. Because Artem and I were talking about it like before, and we were like, "Wow, this sounds like the you were saying the Choose Your Own Adventure books
Right, yeah.
from like when we were kids." It's like if you decide to go into the forest, turn
Yeah.
to page 75. If you decide to go back into the haunted
Yeah,
house,
yeah.
turn to page 80, and you're just like.
As I was digging through it, I never got any divergent points.
Interesting. But you know what? Yeah, well, that is so surprising. I don't know why I assumed it would have like a jump to
Well,
this
the
page.
RPG assumes that you're going to play the role, I guess, in the
Oh,
game.
Interesting.
But I guess like if you want to see how someone else did it, that's kind of like,
Right.
I don't want to insult someone's like I don't want to
No,
yuck
but
anyone's
that's-
yum. Like
But it's kind of fascinating because it's almost it is kind of like a novelized script. You're in this, but it's making you feel like you are the main character. and you're-
yeah.
That's really fascinating.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think yeah.
To this question about the meta within
It is-
games. Oh, we're gonna say.
when I looked at the wiki on lit RPGs, it was like books that are it covers both types.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Game-like elements form an essential part of the story, and visual RPG stats are a significant part of the reading experience. And it distinguishes the genre from novels that tie in with the game, like your D&D tie-in novels. Books that are actual games, such as Choose Your Own Adventure, or games that are literally described, like MUDs and literary fiction. And this is where, like, Kimmy and I got to feel significantly older than Clara.
I played Muds. They were old school when I was like,
So it technically covers both types,
Very
Okay.
cool.
according to Wikipedia. Which,
and
I know
I
it's
could-
not a primary source, but that's fine.
So the game that I had thought there's some excellent versions of these because there's the Shadows Over New York, which is the basically visual novels at that point. Like we get into visual novel territory, which I really like. And the one I was thinking about earlier was The Life and Suffering of Sir Bronte, which is as Clara coded as it sounds, to be honest. It's like
Please explain.
Yeah, say more.
It's like I'm gonna butcher this, and my partner doesn't watch this show, so it's fine. It's this you play the story of like a medieval-ish guy. Like the options are like you can climb the ranks of the church, or you can climb the ranks of like the not church. What's that called? Politics, I guess. And then
What's that called? Politics?
yes, the secular version of church politics.
Yes.
And like it's just your like it's just a story, and it is a choose your own adventure, but it's you can get it on Steam. And they made like and it's called a visual novel.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that I would call it a visual novel. It might be in the same world as, but like I feel like based on that description, dating sims end up in there.
Yeah.
And that's the big one, right?
What was that
Oh my
pigeon
gosh.
dating one? Also, Artem, I'm so sorry. I interrupted you earlier.
Oh yeah.
Oh, well, I was just thinking one of the other questions here was what RPGs that you know of have the meta within the game? Just kind of interesting question because I feel like a lot do. I mean, what in this?
Like the tropes, like the isekai and the slice of life style things.
Is that what it's referring to with this? The meta?
I'm not sure.
I wasn't
Like
sure.
to be honest, like it feels like if lit RPGs are acknowledging the stats within the story.
Mm-hmm.
This one does.
Interesting.
Specifically, the He Who Fights Monsters does.
Because I feel like I would love it in like I was just saying this before. I think before we started was like, if in one of these lit RPGs, like your character has 14 dexterity, therefore go to page 23 to see how well you know how well you scale the like the side of the building. So then it feels like you have agency in the sort of type of hero you are in the story.
Yeah, or like roll 3 dice and add 2, and if you get this, then you go to this page. Like I immediately break it into like PBTA levels of success.
Yeah.
Then there's like the 3 choice options of the
my
pages
gosh.
you turn to.
What if there's a rollable table and like depending on what number you roll, you turn to that page? or
Yeah,
something.
something like that.
That's cool.
Yeah, there's a is this so this guy gets isekai'd, which is why I was so confused. Isekai is like the Japanese term for the genre of anime or of fiction where you go into another world, a la
Portal Fantasy.
Portal
Yeah.
Fantasy. So this guy, it looks like, gets sucked into a new world, and the reason I'm looking at it is there's like a hologram that shows up. And he looks at the ground nearby, had just for some kind of projector, doesn't see it. There was a text on the screen which read, "New quest, stranger in a strange land. You've awoken in a new place." So it is like, so this character is interacting with the game elements, and I don't know if it's because
If it's like Tron, or if it's like
if it's a Tron or if it's a D&D game that is being like, that is the weird bit.
Yeah, I mean that's what we call it metagaming when you are using your outside knowledge in the game.
Yeah.
I mean that's sort of the universal, at least as far as I know in gaming, it's generally tied to those elements. So it's like if you are using your outside of game knowledge in the story, I would assume that would be it.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like RPGs that leverage the knowledge that you are a person playing, or that your character it has that multiple level, I think that's not as common.
Would be cool though.
Well, I mean, speaking of the die game, I wonder if that's going to be actually a big factor of that. I am not familiar with that, but that comic book series is all about people who know and willingly have gone into a world through play. Satanic Panic. They played an evil game and now they're transported into it. Like they know they're in the game.
So
that's-
it's that kind of die.
It is
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
no, it is
Yes,
that.
yes.
It is based on the
Meaning a
comic book
single die,
series.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
so into
The
that.
comic book
definitely thought it would be
series
other
is
kind of
so
die.
gorgeous.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so bleak, but it is like, it's this whole idea of like, I mean, the meta thing. Not to get onto too many tangents, but the meta thing that's explored in Die, at least in the graphic novel, is the nihilism of going, "Oh, this is all a game."
Yeah.
It's so interesting if you're
Ooh.
like playing a game and you're leveraging your meta knowledge of the game. You're like, at one point, you as the players go, "Well, what the fuck does it matter if we're not doing immersion?" You know, which is kind of
I think
curious.
there's like on the flip side of that, that's been kind of interesting is like a book I read a really long time ago called The NPCs. And the premise of the book is a bunch of people at a tavern,
Wait, I
and
think
like
I've heard
this
of this.
group comes in and
Yeah.
they die because like 2 hours ago they ate some bad mushrooms in the forest. And like above story, you realize that group is like a bunch of people who are playing a D&D game, and the GM, they were just being real dicks. So the GM gave them like a roll knowledge on the mushrooms, and they failed it, and so he TPK'd them because they were being assholes. So
Wait,
so
we can do
then, but like what happened in the world of the book is that the summons came from the king, and the king's like also a real dick. So they were like, fuck, if they don't answer and he finds out they all died here, we're all gonna die. So a bunch of these characters from the tavern pretend to be the hero group and go into this quest where they have to
amazing.
go and find the MacGuffin and whatever.
I'm obsessed
Amazing.
with it.
And
Wow.
Stealing it.
and it's
funny.
I wouldn't say, like, I would say it's probably been 10 years since I read it. And I know even at the time when I was listening to it that I was like, "Meh," about some of the tropes that were included. But I did think it was a fun thing, that it was like, it was very in the know about gaming and how players treat NPCs.
Yeah.
God.
But also, like, when they all have their own arcs and they all develop their stuff and all of that stuff. Like, so it was kind of an interesting play on that world was real.
Mm-hmm.
And there were I wouldn't say like big repercussions to the real world, but it did like fall back into the real world at some point. And so I thought that was a really fun.
This reminds me of there's this really cool game that I know a little bit about, I think by Jason Morningstar, called Skeletons.
Yes.
Which is all about the NPC skeletons that are waiting there. Well,
Yeah.
NPC, the monsters that are waiting for. And I love the idea that they're there for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Really
the passage
cool.
of time, the cobwebs on their bones.
Yeah.
You turn off all the lights when you play
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And you have to actually like
Lay on the ground.
yeah, and
Let
like
go and
you
be
turn on the
still.
timer and like
Yes.
wait till the next. Yeah, it's
I
wild.
would still fall asleep.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
This is
100%.
I was gonna say it is the other just aggressively cleric game.
Really fun. I mean, but that's an interesting kind of exploration of, meta being really taken to. Well, no, we're not just we're outside of the game in the sense that we're like literally have to step away from the table.
Yeah.
LARPing.
It is LARPing.
It is.
At that point, it's LARPing.
I think, another good example, kind of in that same vein, I think, is 10 Candles.
Yeah.
While the characters don't know how many candles are lit, you can't help but, like, keep that, like,
Yes.
have that influence how you play as a
Yeah.
as a player. Like, as much as you're like, yes, I will not metagame, it's like, shit, there are 2 candles fucking lit. And it's just like, it's in the game and in the air, and it's very interesting.
That reminds me of two games. One I actually literally played today. I was at Geeky Teas and they were doing the Dead Gamer Society had their like end of the summer con, and I played in a Shadow Dark game, which has a very meta element. You light a torch and it's IRL, real life, 1 hour time. Somebody sets a timer and we're all like, so it is very much meta. Like, all right, guys, we're talking too much. We're gonna run out of time. We need to keep going because no one can see in the dark. And so the premise is like you have this just real life element. So you of course are encouraged as meta to metagame and to figure out the best choices. But because you have a constraint of time, the immersion comes back to stakes. We need to get something done before we're in total. Oh, it's so rad. Another game like that has something similar to that is Dread.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because it's the tower.
Yeah, so you're like, of
Yeah.
course your characters wouldn't know there's a leaning tower going back and forth and you need to be really careful. But that's something really interesting.
Yeah.
That you as a human being being like, oh, I feel the stakes because this thing represents
Yeah.
Yeah.
how close I am to demise,
Dave has a really crazy good Dread story.
Yeah.
You should ask him at some point because it's very good, and I'm not going to tell it.
Dave has the best stories about everything.
Dave has the best stories about everything, but specifically he has a very fun, because I like Saw, so I was like, I'd be fun to do Saw as a horror thing. He's like, I did that. It was Dread, and it was crazy.
And how he punched Leonard Nimoy. That's like, by accident at a con.
Oh,
He was walking and he like pointed at, like he was at Comic-Con and his arm just like happened to perfectly go past Leonard Nimoy's like security guy and into Leonard Nimoy's face.
Oh no.
He turned around and it was just like, oh God. Like, it's like his hero. Like, it's just like, oh, what if it, I mean, it wasn't like that bad, but Leonard Newman just like glared at him and kept walking.
I mean, you punched an old man. Of course he's gonna glare at you.
It wasn't really a punch. I feel like it was more of a
Okay,
aggressive pointing situation.
having been on the receiving end, I was at work and this guy gave me a hug, went to give the next person a hug and accidentally punched me in the face. It still hurts.
It does, yeah.
It still hurts, even though they didn't mean it, even though it's not a real punch.
Yeah.
Getting punched in the face sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sucks more to be like a huge Star Trek fan
I-
and at a convention
Can you even-
and you love everything about Star Trek and specifically Spock, and to turn around in your one moment to meet Leonard Nimoy, you're like, he's glaring at you because you punched him in the face.
Incredible.
The most damn story.
Incredible.
I love that so much. I'm so sorry for him. I'm so glad it didn't happen to me.
It's so great to hear about it.
That's so good to hear.
Yeah, I'm sorry it happened, but I'm glad that it happened.
That I know.
We're just airing Dave's dirty laundry.
Oh, so
All right.
good.
Wonderful.
Oh, man.
Well, there, we were all afraid we weren't going to have anything to say about this. Oh, look at us go.
I'm trying to think of another instance. Like, I feel like specifically with a Portal story, it would be really interesting to have something that, like, I guess your obvious choice is D&D, but if you had to, like, do a Portal fantasy or a Portal RPG that was not D&D, where your characters got sucked out of their normal ass life and got transported into a world, what world would it be?
Huh, interesting.
What world would it be, or what system would I use to do it?
What system would you use to do it?
I've had an idea to do, like, I've wanted to do like a PBTA where you jump from PBTA hack to PBTA hack. And
Yes.
just like, and make sure there are ones that kind of line up okay, but like,
You go from Monster Hearts to Dino Island.
yeah.
Monster Hearts Dino Island is a nightmare.
No. Monster of the Week to Monster Hearts.
Oh, no.
Dino Island.
Yeah, and you like suddenly are flipping, you know, like all of that.
Jump over to
Great.
Grow Underground for no particular. Like,
Yeah.
it's that. Ooh, wow. I don't.
Oh, that's so
I
good.
should go underground?
Can you tell I've been thinking about that for a really long time?
I
It's
want
so
this in my
cool.
life.
It's wild. We played it for Rainbow
Make it
Railroad.
into something.
Like,
Yeah.
when did we do it was our last Rainbow Railroad.
It was before pandemic.
Yeah,
Before it
pre-pandemic.
closed down. It was February of 2020, I think.
Well, speaking of meta, that's really cool because everybody shares the girl playbook.
Yeah.
And everyone kind of gets to become this hero.
January.
The
I remember
What
coming
I-
straight from work to do it.
Oh, maybe
like what would I run?
early 2020.
What would I run? Like an isekai story in that wasn't D&D. In fact, if my D&D party tried to get that meta with me, I would be mad about it. I think
That's
It would
part of the
stress me
reason why
out.
I feel like D&D like already lends itself to a certain amount of meta play to begin with, and then I kind of like just want to hear people's outlandish shit.
Yeah.
I want the level of meta. Actually, okay, so I haven't played this game yet. I play it on the 2nd. Baron Munchausen. Castle Falkenstein is the game that I'm like prepping for. Is a home game I'm prepping for, and the world is so the premise is that your friend gets the writer's friend gets isekai'd into this other world in which it's like steampunk, Victorian, fairies are also real, and there's dragons for some reason world. And Jules Verne is like the science minister of France at the time, and builds a death laser. This is not as important as the point that this person charms the court of Victoria. Maybe I don't remember. Don't watch this BP or book. They're running it for me. I should know this by now. He charms the court and explains them about TTRPGs, and they're like, you should write us one of these TTRPGs. So they do. And then they send the RPG back to our world. And that is what is in your hands, is the like text transcribed and made playable in like, and then so he publishes it basically. And now you have it.
That's so meta.
That's
I would, but here's the
amazing.
thing. It would be because it's canonical that you can isekai. I would do Castle Falkenstein as that.
That's a great answer.
That's
so
amazing.
weird.
I
A
love that.
buddy of mine, I just remembered, has a long spanning Dungeon World campaign
Yeah.
where there was like this moment where people started traveling through dimensions, portal hopping, and he did this thing where whenever they would travel to a different dimension, he would play a different Grant Howard one-page game. So like they transported to one place where they suddenly were critters and they had allegiance to a witch that died and they played the witch is dead.
Yeah.
You know, and another one they were like, you guys are all bears. And it's somehow like all connected because
Honey
they
Heist,
had
yeah.
some kind of like dimensional nexus
Oh
that they
my
had.
god.
But it was yeah, it sounds really rad.
I feel
I wish I
like
had played
if you're
that
gonna
one.
play Honey Heist, you all have to be honey badgers.
Like, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all. That would be a fun AP. I'm just saying. If only someone would run it.
I love that though.
Yeah,
I
isn't that
We just
neat?
play a bunch of two stat
Oh my
games
gosh.
as
Yes,
you
yes,
hop
yes.
from portal to portal.
Could be very fun.
I love all laser and feelings hacks. Oh my god.
It's like Quantum Leap, but for TTRPG.
Yes.
Oh.
All right. Mailbag number 3. This is from the archive in 2015. Back in the not even the olden days, but a while ago.
I mean, it was almost a
Going
decade
back,
ago, so
back.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh, God. Okay. Dear Happy Jackers, my name is Josh, and I started listening to your funny and very informative podcast last season off a recommendation from Fear the Boot. That's another podcast. They're still going. They're cool and they're fun. Now I'm working my way through your backlog and can't wait to hear all of your gaming experiences and get all your knowledge. Now, on to my question. I'm a newer GM, aka not a single one of my games make it past the first or second session. My brother recently asked me to run a game for him after I got hooked on a couple of actual plays for D&D. I need help though. How do I balance the game so it's funny and challenging for a one-player game? Should I add an NPC to help with the progression of the story and help with combat, or just let him play solo and keep the enemies to a minimum? Thanks for all the help, one way or the other. Your new fan from Ohio, Josh.
Aw.
P.S. Take a drink.
Fine.
Huzzah.
Josh, I hope Josh still listens and that their games have lasted
yes.
past the first.
Oh my god.
Yeah. That is our best.
In the last 9
for you.
years.
A decade later, you still have only done single session games.
Honestly,
Um,
I feel that.
Mhm.
And because we were just talking about Portal Fantasies and hopping from system to system and all of this stuff, I'm like, introduce a new NPC to help in every session. Like every time you go to a new, like a new place or a new quest or whatever, there's just someone else who's popping in.
Totally. Yeah.
It's like
Honestly,
in
that's cool.
yeah. Well, no, it's like in Pokemon where they go and every town has like the nurse
the
who
nurse
looks
is the
like
same,
the nurse.
Yeah. But they're all
They're
canonically
stored.
related.
Yeah.
That's right.
Sisters.
So, I was actually just thinking about this very thing. Not to shamelessly plug, but I have a little TTRPG podcast that I'm getting back up off the ground. We have a very long hiatus. It's called I Only Got 3 Voices, because it's 3 of us. And we just talked about like, look, I got my grumpy, I've got my silly, and I've got my kid voice. That's
Yeah.
So this is with my buddy in North Carolina, and we just life got on the way, and we kind of took a hiatus. And then recently we were talking, and recently it was me, his partner, and him together, and just like not all of us have time together. So we're like, listen, I really want to get back into this, and I have this idea. I want to do a creepy, spooky, but also very funny Delta Green game. And he really wants to play a Delta Green game. And I was like, let's do a one-on-one. And I've been really thinking about it. I was like, well, how do you make this fun and accessible for people, right? Because you don't have other people to bounce things off of. And my recommendation is, I think you create basically a style of play. At least this is what I'm kind of thinking of doing, is that I want to know a lot about the inner life of this person. So as many times as possible, say, well, what are you thinking right now in this moment as you're seeing this scene? And how does that make you feel? And then what do you want to do about it? So that it creates this dynamic kind of, so the richness of the world, right, isn't just what could be described by me, because then that's just me doing all the talking, but it suddenly gets filled in by this person's experience. And then I think like, I mean, I'm really excited, and I'm kind of writing up a bunch of stuff for it. I think that's sort of like the way to approach it. And then as to the question like about NPCs, yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be like a lone detective going into a town where something weird is going on. He's going to be meeting a ton of locals. So that's where all multiples of my 3 voices will come in.
Oh my god. It's like the noir.
Yes,
So
the hardboiled
every-
detective.
Every
right?
town has its own
Noir.
like femme fatale
Oh,
or
yeah,
like
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
plucky
The tropes.
wannabe sidekick
Yeah.
or like I mean, for all that noir has its issues, I love me some noir.
So there is a podcast called Party of One,
Yes.
and like I hope that I don't know how old Party of One is, but I hope that
It's definitely not from 2015.
You're definitely not at 2015 years old, but I hope that if Josh never had this question answered, that arrived in their life at that point, because like that is the best. Like honestly, it's very cool to hear like how people do one-on-one.
Are they the
games.
ones that did like a Star Wars one, or is that?
They've done a lot.
They've done a lot.
Yeah, okay.
Each episode is a single game with one other person, so they've
right.
been doing it for a
so it's like
while.
one shot.
Yeah.
There's
Isn't it?
Yeah,
yes, one shot.
Aaron did, because Aaron did Lighthearted.
Yeah,
Actually.
yeah.
There's a group of UK podcasters from the Pickaxe network called Mystery Quest,
Yeah.
and they'll have a long running. They'll do mini seasons, like 4-episode like arcs or something, and then in between they'll do a 1,000-year-old vampire, where there's a GM who reads the rules and reads the prompts to somebody who plays it. So it's like this.
Nice.
It kind of comes back to our kind of meta question from before.
Yeah,
I like that.
I have a couple friends who've done this, but like so I have friends who are a couple, and they run one-on-one RPGs with each other, and it's really fucking cute.
Aw.
That's
It is
adorable.
Adorable in a way that I'm just like,
Yeah.
So yeah, I that's my like
I'm
everything
sorry, are
I've
these
heard about.
friends, you and your partner.
No. Ben and I
saying-
cannot play games together. It's actually very funny.
When I say my wife and I, she's way too competitive. She's like, "How do I win?"
I-
I'm like,
that-
"Well,
that's
you know, you
part of
live in
it.
this world, and you maybe go on a quest." Yes, but how do I win? When's the victory
Part
happen?
of it.
we tell a good story and have fun together.
Yeah, but I'm gonna have more fun. you
Yeah.
see. But no, yeah, it's but so like everything I've heard from like, because all games can be run one-on-one. I think it really is like, it is just the process of like a more direct story. Because when you write a little scenario for D&D or whatever, you're writing a story about what happens if people do or don't intervene. So it's just the number has gone down. So it's exactly the same as before, but you only have to incorporate one backstory, which honestly nicer.
I mean, it could be kind of like, just to bring it back to my wheelhouse, books. Like if you look at like, because you could do a real campaign, like a lengthy campaign with just one person, if you treat it the same way like urban fantasy or like some long running fantasy series treat theirs, where they're following where you just have the one POV of the main character.
It's the classic like hero's journey trope. Like,
Yeah.
like start them like they're not a hero yet. You know what? Like go watch like Conan or any like
The Witcher, right?
Yeah, The
Totally.
Witcher.
Red
read-
Sonja.
Yeah, Red Sonja. Read some of the Greek Odysseus. All these things like have these things like as touchstones as you start with them being a farmer and then slowly build up to the great hero, which is
And then they find out their dad is Zeus. And
Yeah.
like, all hell breaks
or
loose.
Darth Vader, and it'll be great.
Then-
Yeah, and because that's exactly what D&D is designed to do. It's start powerless or fairly powerless and build yourself up to god level status, basically.
And there is something there that answers, I think, a question that, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure folks bump into this, but I always bump into this when I like run traditional games or like D&D, where it's like everyone really wants to be the main character, and there's not a ton in place to like not do that. So it's like really a lot of the time it's like the hard work is like getting group cohesion, but everybody wants to be Red Sonja. Everybody wants to be Conan.
Yeah.
In this case, you're like, oh, you are Conan. You are Red Sonja. There you go. You know.
You are the
Right.
main character.
Yeah, you're the main
Congratulations.
character.
And like as far as like balance is concerned, the nice thing about running games for one person is you get immediate feedback, and you can tell when things like let them play solo, keep the enemies to a minimum. why have enemies at all? Like, make it like obviously, if fighting is fun for you, do it. But like solo games are such a like one-on-one games are such a well of like creativity and like emotionality and stuff within a game space that I think it's really like it's kind of a treat. Because we do it for the All Night Society. Every once in a while we have like interlude or solos or things that are end up being individual gameplay, and they're nice because we're not trying to worry about spotlight as much, or we're not trying to negotiate, just not talk over each other on a Zoom call.
I would love like if I could do one-on-one combats, I probably would like D&D a lot more, because it's your turn, then my turn, and your turn, and then my turn, and it's like DM me, and it's like I don't have to wait 45 minutes till my next action or any of this.
You really like Baldur's Gate then?
I do not.
What?
I know. I've actually talked about this.
You were playing to me, I
so
think.
many people.
No,
Baldur's Gate combat is so hard.
I am the only person playing this video game. Why am I waiting for my turn?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
Like,
I like that I get to play everyone else's turn.
So here is my issue with Baldur's Gate, and always has been since Baldur's Gate 1, is that I am suddenly in control of 7 people, and I'm like, there's so much happening in combat.
Have you never been in a D&D party where you're like, you're all playing wrong?
no.
I mean,
Okay, well, anyway,
I have a podcast for that.
my point being I get to control everyone's character so they make the best move.
Oh, no.
I would say also, since this is an archive email, that
Yeah.
like now we are in the enlightened age, where you don't have to be playing D&D with one person.
Yes.
You could play any of the there's so many systems out there that are made for one person play.
Yeah.
Like a GM-in-1 or GM-less systems have become really, really, like, the world of GM-less systems has opened up so much. And you both could be playing this game where you're passing that torch between the two of you. And it could be so much fun. And some of them are, like, in that, like, high fantasy setting where you get some of the feels of D&D without all the, like, D&D-ness of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, without having to worry so much about the balance of it and all of that, because that's built into the system.
Your first comment, I was like, yes, absolutely, but I took it a totally different way because we can play online now.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
right?
you don't have to play with one person because you can play with people from across the ocean. And in 2015, most of us had no idea how to do that, to be fair. Like, it wasn't until, like, pandemic when we were all like, oh, some people have been playing online. Hey, people who've been playing online, how do we play online? And it became normalized then. But yeah, that's probably something you discovered too, if you're still playing TTRPG, Josh.
Right. Josh writes back. Oh, thanks. I handled it, but I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks. Yeah.
Love being in the Discord. Wild that you found this email.
Well, we did answer this email at the time. This has already been answered. This is just us pulling up old things from the archive to see how our advice has changed.
Because possibly we just need people to write in more current letters.
That too.
Well, we do have a fairly good amount of that, but this is also fun to kind of revisit them like this, because our answers are totally different than 2015.
Yeah, totally, right? Like,
I mean, it is super fun, but it is like,
Also write in emails. Like, I'm not against that. But,
Yeah, please do. But
please write an email. But yeah, I like the idea that you could like branch out into things that were made for.
Yeah.
And I would love to play more like GM-less games or like mini, like intimate games with people that aren't a full table, that it's just like, that are something a little bit more than one-pagers and yet aren't the melancholy, yes, I'm a lonely soul and I will die alone and my cats will eat my body kind of like
that's my game.
feel
I'm
that I
putting on an
get.
edge. I will die. I'm lonely soul. I'm all alone. My cats will eat my body. Is that what we said?
yeah.
Okay, that's my edge game.
I mean, that's my actual real life. I would love to have some escapism.
Well, then you don't have to play it.
I just don't want escapism necessarily all the time with all my lovely friends. I want it with just like one of my lovely friends.
That's fair.
All right. I think we're good.
Solo turtle game.
All right. Thank you for joining us for season 34, episode 10 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast.
We did it.
We did it! Please support our amazing indie designer of the month, Jacqueline Brick. You can find them on rufflejacks.itch.io or search for them for Jacqueline Brick on DriveThru. Thank you to our chat mod, James V, and to all our amazing Patreons who keep us ad-free and independent. You can join their amazing ranks at happyjacks.org/Patreon. My name is Kimmy.
I'm Pooja.
I'm Clara.
And I'm Artam.
And this week we're going to leave you with a song called Laser Printed Hero. It's a cover of a song by Stu Venable.
I was just thinking about that song recently.
Oh, amazing.
I want to cover
And it's by a group called the Mary Sues, and I am in it, so yeah. Anyway,
Hell yeah.
Yay.
yay, we'll see you all next week. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
She looks upon the landscape of this ancient battlefield. She looks upon the horrors that curiosity revealed. That endless goblin army, full of avarice and vice. She gently combs her battle steed as she reaches for her dice. And she's a laser-printed hero, a figure cast in lead. And if you miss a dice roll, she may just end up dead. Don't forget about her backstory, both family and foe. And if this is her last stand, well, that's just how the story goes. She rushes into battle with her fearful, stony gaze. Today she'll give no quarter as she rushes through the haze. She spurs her great horse forward as she wades amongst the horde. She leaves a trail of corpses with her trusty +3 sword. And she's a laser-printed hero, no prisoners shall she take, 'cause she's deep into her battle range, a role you didn't make. Her companions keep their distance, so they're not mistook for foes. And if she kills the healer, well, that's just how the story goes. And now the battle's over, her companions give a toast unto the mighty hero that turned that goblin host. She looks around the tavern and she mutters